Welcome to this short talk entitled The Teacup as an Art for the Table. This talk is an extension of the seminar we are currently offering at YSU entitled Arts for the Table, which takes a look at the history of decorative arts in ceramic, metal, and glass intended for the context of dining. The image that you see here is a late 1700s tea bowl that was designed for export to the West from China. Originally, it was produced in the kilns of southern China, and it is true porcelain with hand-painted decoration. The floral elements are reflective of its Chinese origin, where the geometrical borders were something that were more and more developed to appeal to Western tastes. Initially, going back hundreds of years in East Asia, teacups never had handles, so this combined with the vessel's small size of 3.5 inches wide by 2 inches tall reflects the origins of tea drinking in the Far East. Here, on the other hand, you have a teacup and saucer made from soft paste porcelain, which was produced in the United Kingdom, probably in Staffordshire in the West Midlands or in England's far northeast. This vessel has a handle as added insulation for handling a hot beverage, and it has two separate types of decoration. The pink bands that you see are called luster. They are created by painting a metallic glaze on the vessel, and when the vessel is put into the kiln, the gold or copper color of the metallic glaze will change to pink. The concentric annular decoration you see is undoubtedly created by painting the vessel on a wheel. The pictorial scene, on the other hand, is created through transfer printing. With transfer printing, an engraving plate was created, and then inked, and then paper was applied to that, and then the same paper was applied to the wall of the ceramic vessel, creating a transfer. So this is a quick and easy way of creating matching vessels with very complicated scenes on them. This marks, of course, the presence of the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom, as opposed to the continued reliance on handcraft in China. The scene on the front is actually Venus in an empire-style dress, plucking the bow away from Cupid reclining in the lower right. The romantic theme, of course, being fairly appropriate to the age of Jane Austen. On the other side, somewhat incongruously, is a scene of a shepherd, a shepherdess, and their sheep. In contrast to the previous teacup, which sported classical ornament that hints at the romantic or courtship possibilities of tea as a separate ritual during the day, these two teacups were produced slightly later in the 19th century, when tea became an acceptable accompaniment to a luncheon or perhaps even a breakfast. These examples are both transfer printed earthenware created in Staffordshire. Their transfer printed ornament shows different landscape scenes which feature classical pavilions carefully framed by elegant trees. This kind of landscape composition echoes the 17th century paintings of Claude Lorrain, as well as the choreography of the picturesque English landscape garden, which had reached its height of vogue by this point in time. These are actually in two separate patterns. The one on the left is labeled on its bottom Shannon, and the maker of the Shannon pattern is as of yet unknown. The example on the right, on the other hand, is in the Venus pattern, which was created by a firm named Podmore and Walker that then was bought out by Wedgwood. And this is one of the Wedgwood examples, which would have been a product of their 1849 to 1859 run. The example on the left is still handleless and probably slightly earlier for that reason. It's kind of the tail end of the tea bowl as an acceptable accompaniment for the taking of the beverage. By the 1850s, handles were almost universal. The shape of the vessel on the left is very much a classical urn, complete with a molded base, and so speaks of also this kind of tail end of the classical revivals, particularly the Greek revival, although the transfer printed borders around its rim speak of the Rococo and the beginnings of the revival styles of the mid-century, because of course Rococo, the organic forms of the Rococo were popular about 100 years before the object was produced. The shape of the Wedgwood example on the right, on the other hand, is more 12-faceted polygon throughout much of its body, although the rim is in fact circular. That kind of points towards the influence of Renaissance or Gothic revival, increasingly popular at mid-century. Both of these vessels are more upright than the previous forms, and that is part due to their insulating factors. Now, perhaps, these cups were meant to keep your beverage warm throughout a lunch instead of just for the taking of tea in relatively rapid order as part of an afternoon ritual. Leaping ahead decades, then, we come to this substantial breakfast teacup. This cup measures 5 inches in diameter by 3.5 inches in height. It was produced by the Royal Worcester factory and carries the date mark for 1939. The bottom of the saucer is also inscribed that the design was by one H.R. Millet. The style of the ornament in this instance is a kind of heterogeneous mixture of elements. The orange and black racing stripes that zoom around the saucer's perimeter and the rim of the cup really speak of the Art Deco, prototypical modern style of the 1930s. Yet the scrolled bracket, which supports the loop handle, combined with the hand-painted carriage scene on the front, are more nostalgic in their influences. Of course, no one by 1939 is riding long distances in a stagecoach, but here the image of speed and the racing stripe deco bands perhaps hint at the function of the object, which is to get you going. So, when looked at collectively, what can this rather eclectic collection of teacups tell us? Well, the varying shapes of the vessels, as I've already mentioned, show us that there is a shifting role for tea as a beverage in society. In the 18th century, when the form of the tea bowl was more like the form of the traditional Chinese tea bowl, the taking of tea was a special occasion. It was a special social ritual. Then, as time progresses, the form becomes more upright and functional, straightforward consumption becomes more the goal. Handles are added and the teacups are more insulated to keep the beverage warm as accompaniment to meals. More broadly speaking, though, these vessels can tell us a lot about the global economy and how tea became more prolifically distributed throughout the world and at a cheaper price. Tea in the 18th century was kept under lock and key, and of course by the 20th century boxes of tea bags can be bought rather cheaply, more cheaply than most other beverages. Finally, there is, of course, a broader issue here that even reflects a kind of biological transformation going on in the realms of tea consumption, where we become more and more acclimatized towards caffeine, and that great big breakfast cup from the 30s really speaks of this as, you know, a very direct and rapid way to consume lots of stimulant in a very short order of time. What could your dishes tell you?